The air in that hangar was not just cold. It was judgmental. It pressed down on every shoulder, every breath, every heartbeat that dared to exist under command. Captain Elise Ward stood in that storm of silence, her uniform spotless, her expression carved from iron. She had been accused, stripped, dismissed, yet she said nothing. No defense, no plea, no anger, because she understood something her accusers never would. That silence, when rooted in truth, is not weakness. It is rebellion. It is the refusal to validate a lie with an argument. The world mistook her quiet as surrender, but in that stillness, she was screaming a truth too sharp for words. Silence can be louder than outrage when it carries the weight of conviction. Every system that feeds on control fears silence more than disobedience, because silence cannot be debated, cannot be corrected, cannot be punished into compliance. It exposes power for what it is, fragile. Admiral Harris stood towering before her, his voice like thunder. His words cutting through the air, but none of it moved her. Her composure was an armor no rank could dent. While others shouted to defend themselves, she stood still and let her truth speak through her eyes. In that quiet, every soldier watching learned something unspoken, that rebellion doesn't always roar. Sometimes it stands still and waits for arrogance to crumble under its own noise. Silence is dangerous because it leaves space for reflection, and reflection is what the powerful fear most. It forces them to hear the echoes of their own doubt. When Elise refused to answer, when she let her actions remain her only statement, she held up a mirror to every man who had judged her. That mirror did not flatter them. It revealed fear, not hers, but theirs. Fear of being wrong, fear of losing control, fear of confronting a truth that didn't fit the report. That is the true rebellion, not in breaking the rules, but in exposing the hollowness of those who write them. Her silence was a verdict. It told them, "You may have the authority to dismiss me, but you will never have the power to define me." The greatest acts of rebellion are rarely loud. They are disciplined, measured, controlled. Elise didn't walk away in fury. She walked away in command. The kind of command that cannot be given, only earned through conviction. Her silence carried every battle she had fought, every life she had saved, every order she had disobeyed for the right reasons. And when the SEALs saluted her, not the uniform, not the rank, but the woman, they weren't saluting defiance, they were saluting courage. The kind of courage that doesn't need to justify itself. The kind that speaks through legacy, not speeches. Silence is not the absence of voice. It is the mastery of it. It is knowing when to speak, and when to let the world choke on its own noise. Elise Ward's rebellion was not born in chaos, but in control, in knowing that dignity cannot be taken. It can only be surrendered, and she refused to surrender hers. That is why her silence echoed long after she left the base. It spread through the ranks, through whispers and stories, until even those who condemned her began to question the system that demanded her obedience. Because silence, when it belongs to the right soul, is not retreat, it is resistance. It is the sound truth makes when it refuses to die. The night over Helmand Province was chaos, tracer rounds painting the sky like red scars, explosions carving echoes into the desert wind. Down below, a platoon of SEALs was pinned and dying by inches, their radio calls lost to static and hopelessness. And then came a voice, calm, steady, unflinching. "This is Raptor Shadow. Hold your position. No hesitation, no permission, just conviction." That moment wasn't about arrogance or disobedience. It was about proof. Proof that courage does not wait for clearance. Proof that leadership is not granted by rank, but earned through action. When Captain Elise Ward dove her F-22 into a storm of gunfire to pull those men out alive, she wasn't claiming her worth. She was proving it. Because in the fires of combat, truth doesn't live in speeches or medals. Proof is fired, not claimed. Anyone can speak of valor in a room filled with safety. Anyone can claim loyalty under fluorescent lights and ceremony. But when the sky burns and death breathes down your neck, words collapse. And all that remains is proof. Alice didn't talk about sacrifice. She embodied it. Every missile she fired, every maneuver she risked her life for, was a declaration written not in ink, but in smoke. And the men on the ground didn't need reports to tell them who she was. They saw it, felt it, lived because of it. The military could question her decisions, but it could never rewrite what those men witnessed. One pilot, against orders, defying fear itself to keep them breathing. That's the kind of truth no bureaucracy can bury, because it's carved into the memory of those who survived. Proof demands no audience, only purpose. That's what Elise understood when the war ended and the base tried to brand her insubordinate. She didn't beg for recognition. She let the silence of those she saved speak louder than any argument. The system called her reckless. The soldiers called her a guardian. That's the divide between words and action, between those who talk about honor and those who bleed for it. Elise's story became a testament to that reality, that real proof leaves scars, not signatures. You can erase reports, redact files, and silence testimonies, but you can't erase the pulse of men who lived to tell their children her name. When Admiral Harris finally saw the truth, it broke him, because every accusation he had made, every rule he had enforced, crumbled under the weight of evidence that didn't need a courtroom. It had already been written in fire. Elise's missions weren't mistakes. They were miracles born from instinct and integrity. That's why the CLs saluted her without orders. That's why the legends refused to die. Proof doesn't bow to authority. It doesn't need approval to exist. It stands alone, undeniable, unshakable, unashamed. The same way Elise Ward did. In the end, proof is not something you hold, it's something you become. It's the echo of every decision made when no one is watching, the trail of light left behind when courage meets consequence. Elise Ward never sought validation because her truth had already been written in the skies, in the missions no one wanted to fly, and in the lives that would never forget her. She didn't need to claim her worth. She fired it. And in doing so, she left behind a message that will outlive her uniform. Talk is for the safe. Proof belongs to the brave. Legacy is often imagined as grand monuments, public accolades, or historical fame, but the truth is far more subtle. Real legacy is not born in the glare of spotlights or in the applause of crowds. It is forged quietly, in the unremarkable moments that few notice. It is in the hands that lift others without seeking recognition, in the patience of daily labor, and in the persistence that does not need validation. Those who leave a lasting impact do not shout about their efforts. They let their actions speak in whispers that echo long after they are gone. In a world obsessed with visibility, the quiet hands that mold character, nurture growth, and instill values are often the ones shaping the future in the most enduring ways. Consider the countless individuals whose influence shapes society without ever being recorded in history books. Teachers who spend late nights correcting papers and preparing lessons. Parents who sacrifice their own dreams for the growth of their children. And community workers who labor in obscurity. These are the hands that forge legacy. Their work is often unnoticed because it lacks immediate grandeur, but it creates ripples that touch lives for generations. Legacy is not measured by wealth or status, but by the unseen impact that grows steadily, quietly, and inevitably into something monumental. The strength of these quiet hands lies not in recognition, but in consistency, the relentless pursuit of meaningful action, even when no one is watching. Moreover, quiet hands are disciplined hands. Legacy is not a product of fleeting inspiration or occasional heroics. It is built in the repetition of small, deliberate acts. Writing a page every day, teaching a child one lesson at a time, or extending kindness when it feels inconvenient. These are the bricks of an enduring legacy. The world may not reward such patience immediately, but over time, the cumulative effect of quiet, persistent effort is unstoppable. It is in these ordinary acts that extraordinary outcomes are incubated, showing us that greatness rarely bursts forth in spectacular fashion. It seeps in slowly, quietly, like roots growing deep beneath the surface, unseen but unshakable. The quiet hands that forge legacy also embrace humility. They do not labor for applause or the validation of others. They labor because they understand the intrinsic value of contribution. There is a certain nobility in shaping something larger than oneself without needing to be seen, and this humility magnifies the power of their impact. By focusing on what truly matters, the growth of others, the preservation of principles, the building of community, these individuals create legacies that endure. History remembers not the boastful claims, but the results that persist, the lives touched, and the structures strengthened by invisible effort. Ultimately, the legacy forged by quiet hands teaches us a profound lesson. The most meaningful work is rarely flashy, yet it is the most transformative. It reminds us that patience, discipline, humility, and consistency are far more powerful than fleeting recognition or temporary fame. If we wish to leave a mark that lasts, we must cultivate the capacity to work diligently, to serve quietly, and to act meaningfully without expectation. Every effort, no matter how small, contributes to the larger mosaic of life, and every quiet hand has the potential to shape history. In the end, the legacy that truly matters is not the one that shouts its presence, but the one that silently endures, strong, steady, and undeniable.